Today we begin with big news from the state Supreme Court handing down a ruling regarding disgraced ex-police Chief Louis Kealoha.
That's right. The High Court says taxpayers should not be responsible for Kealoha's legal fees. It's a decision that overrules the Honolulu Police Commission, which initially said that the public would pay for his legal defense in one of Hawaii's biggest corruption trials. In 2019, the commission ruled Kealoha was entitled to taxpayer-funded legal defense because some of his criminal actions were done in performance of his duties as a police officer. In their ruling, the justices said Kealoha's crimes weren't performed as part of his duties, and experts say the decision could also impact other criminal cases involving current or former members of law enforcement.
The effect that this ruling will have on police officers going forward is that the Honolulu Police Commission will have to look more closely at the facts that are being alleged regarding each police officer in each case going forward. If there are acts that are alleged where the police officer is acting is in his or her own best interest and not in the interest of the community, it's likely that the police commission will find that taxpayers should not be held responsible for paying for the police officer's legal defense.
Given the ruling, the city is now expected to pursue another lawsuit to recoup the legal defense funds.